Well, hello, everybody. I am Daniel Askew, the co-host of the Living TN podcast. I'm here with my distinguished, good-looking gentleman, Ryan Frederick. Say hello, sir.
Hello, everyone.
All right. So this podcast is about the story of entrepreneurship and the story of good and fun things about living in Tennessee. And so today we're just going to kind of give everything a little bit of context and talk about our stories and why the heck we're doing this and what our goals are. So I guess we'll dive right in. Ryan, any goals for you for this first episode?
Well, it's first off, it's been quite a process getting this whole thing put together, and it's been an awesome collective effort. But I'm just excited that we're getting to do this and just kind of share our individual stories and hopefully share some knowledge with people so that they can take something away from it. And, either to excite them about growing their business or for them to know a little bit more about real estate or, any of that.
So where do you think we should start?
Well, I think it would be good to first dive into your story, where you come from. And I guess we can start from the very beginning, where you were born. And we can start from there.
Wow, that is definitely the very beginning.
Yeah.
Well, I will keep it PG-13 because I'm sure my mother is going to listen to this multiple times. So my family's from Memphis, and they moved to Nashville just before I was born. And I was raised, I guess, somewhat in a real estate related family. And my dad went to a Zig Ziglar conference when he was in his early 20s and was inspired to speak in cliches and grow and, do things he never thought he could do. And he decided he wanted to be in commercial real estate. And so he picked a firm that he saw in the paper and saw this guy named Dick Freeman, who's kind of historically a major Nashvilleian. And he figured out when Dick went to work and when he left work. And my dad sat in the lobby, saw him coming into work one day, jumped in the elevator with him, gave a legit elevator pitch, as we now know it, and convinced Dick to interview him that day. And
is that where the term comes from him doing that?
I do believe so.
Yeah.
And so Dick interviewed him that day, gave him a job, and within 2 years, my dad worked his way up to be the executive vice president. He had about 150 direct reports. And so we were, kind of a growing, successful family. And then in 1989, Congress changed a real estate law that it's actually pretty complicated, and it really crashed the whole industry. And so they were the largest development company in the Southeast, and the whole company went under overnight. And my dad was forced to fire 140 people, and felt terrible about that, and ended up, we went bankrupt and lost everything, and he didn't feel worthy of being married. And so my parents got divorced. And, as that all sounds sad, I share it just because it did shape who I am and kind of what inspires me and why I'm an entrepreneur. And so he reinvented himself and became a mortgage banker, and he was one of the best in the state of Tennessee. And so my mom worked in insurance and was in real estate some. So, after church on Sundays, we drove around town, and Dad would tell me who lived where and who knew who and whose grandkids they were. And
so that's where you get that from.
Yes.
Whenever we're driving around town, he's always pointing out who lives in what house.
I know. People my wife makes fun of me for it. But I find it interesting, right? And now there's even more interesting people with celebrities living everywhere and, athletes. And so anyways, I built my first business in college, and it was a pepper sauce company. I met a nice gentleman named Tom at a restaurant, and he had this sauce, but he was kind of down on his luck because he had lost his restaurant because it got hit by a tornado, and he had this great pepper sauce that people loved, and he wanted to sell it, but he needed, somebody that was young and hungry. And I was like, man, I'm going to be a business owner. So I was the CEO, the grantor on the bank account. And I drove around in I think it was a minivan at the time, and sold this pepper sauce to restaurants and grocery stores. And then they would white label it and sell it as if it was rum. And so we, made quite a bit of money. It's a great learning experience. College was a little less interesting. I'm sitting in, bowling class, but I've got, companies reaching out to me wanting to
Bowling
talk.
class?
I did bowling.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was,
What's your high score?
I was never very good. I always needed the gutter guards. I was big on the gutter guards. And I was big on rolling between my legs. It was kind of my thing, showing off for the ladies.
Granny style?
Absolutely. So after college, I decided that there was kind of this epiphany moment where my mom asked me to come home for the weekend and asked me to go to what she called a dedication on Saturday morning. And dedication, I think, started at about 7:30 in the morning. Of course, I got home about 3 or 4 and I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to do whatever she was talking about. And we went to a school, and my great uncle, my granddad's brother, his name was Emmett Kennan, and he was a builder in Nashville. And he bought a piece of property in 1951. I believe it was for $10,000. It was 100 acres in Brentwood. And in 2002, he sold 60 of the 100 acres to the state of Tennessee for several $1,000,000, and they built a school on it. And they named it after him and his wife. And it was called Kenrose Elementary. And my whole family has our name in bricks leading up to the school. And I just, was inspired and thought, this is what I want to do. I want to build a legacy. And it was, floating around as a young kind of college age guy. And all of a sudden I had direction. And so I set a goal on that day that I wanted to be in real estate and that I wanted to build a school or multiple schools. And that's still a goal today. So I asked my dad, how do you succeed in real estate? And he said, if you don't understand finance, you're only going to go so far. So I decided, hey, I'm going to do the finance thing, kind of put my nerdy glasses on and learn numbers and interest rates. And so I jumped into the mortgage business, had a really successful career for, 6 or 7 years, worked my way up to, at one point, my dad and I worked in the same office, which was really neat. And then kept seeing all these real estate agents. And at the time, they were making a lot more money than mortgage bankers. We used to make about 65 basis points per loan. And now mortgage bankers make, 1% or 1.5% even at times. But back then I was looking at 0.65, or I could go out, build my own business, charge, several percent to help people buy and sell houses. So I decided to switch over. So jumped into the real estate side. Did really well. My secret trick was I never told any of my clients that I switched to sell houses. And so people would call me and say, hey, I'm thinking about refinancing, or I'm thinking about, I need to get pre-approved. And I would say, hey, I don't do that anymore. I sell houses, but you want to buy a house? And so I actually was the rookie of the year for a big national firm, and was really proud of that, and worked a lot with foreclosures and investors and REOs and short sales, which at that time was really complicated because the market was crashing. And
what year did you start transition to being a
I
real estate
believe it
agent?
was 08, 09.
So, yeah, great time to
it's
jump into real estate.
At my older age now, everything's a little blurry, but
yeah.
So I really started when the market was bottoming out,
Mm-hmm.
and that, created its own opportunities, and I wasn't intimidated by it. And I do believe that in most businesses, and particularly in real estate, that wealth is created in a down market. And that's when everybody else quits, and that's when you should buckle down and move forward. So I decided my second year that I was going to build a team. And the reason was because I felt that consumers needed somebody paying attention to them at all times. And when I was traveling and out showing houses and doing all these different things, I felt that I wasn't always accessible. And so the first version of the team was that, we had smart people that were there to answer the phone, and it was all about customer service. And then just after that first year, we were actually celebrating at my family's cabin up at Mont Eagle, and my dad started acting funny. Went to the doctor the next day, and they told him he had stage 4 cancer, gave him 2 weeks to 2 months to live. Jeez. And that was a defining moment, I guess, for my whole family, but for me in particular, because it gave me clarity, seeing, what the end of life looks like, that, what's important while you're here. So I had a big sense of urgency, and the team that I just started is what gave me the energy to keep going, because I just couldn't sit at home and pull the covers over my head every day. I had to show up for my people. And we ended up having a lot of success right out of the gate. And part of what Living TN and the concept was that instead of naming the team after me, and that's kind of how traditional real estate teams were built, it was you got a charismatic leader, hopefully they're pretty good looking, and the leader would do all the listings, and then you would have buyers agents. And I just thought, if there's a really talented person, are they really going to join my company and just want to work with buyers? I just felt that was limiting. And it was limiting to name it after myself. I mean, there's a lot of different profitable ways to run a business. In fact, we probably would have been more profitable through the years had it been named after me and all about me. But that wasn't my goal. It's not what excited me. And so I went kind of against the model and built a brand that was more community-based. And the goal was to invest in entrepreneurs. We started in real estate and have since expanded into other things, but the goal was, how do we become ambassadors of the community? And so Living TN was a brand that was about, how do we kind of portray the lifestyle here? How do we promote other businesses? And then how do we promote the agents that are entrepreneurs on our platform? So it was never really about me. And that's what made it more fun. And so we, like I said a minute ago, we had a lot of success. I think in our third year, we did about 38 million in sales. And that kind of put us on the map, nationwide, and helped get me into, several high level circles, which I would learn from. And so my secret was that I would figure out these big events, and I would fly there, and I was still, even though we were making a lot of money, I was reinvesting everything. So I was still pretty much broke. So I would go to Austin, Texas, for example, figure out where all the heavy hitters stayed. Then I would stay at like the Red Roof Inn, like 10 miles away. And then I would go every morning and every evening to the lobby bar and just sit there by myself and start talking to people. And so I met a bunch of like industry leaders and just tried to fit in. And I would ask them a lot of great questions. And then I would, what we like to call rip off and duplicate. I'd fly home, implement what I learned, and then fly back out 3 weeks later. So that was my process for years. I traveled multiple times a month, because back then you had to really travel to get the highest info. And so since then, we've partnered, I don't know, with maybe maybe not 200, but well over 100 agents have kind of worked here through the years. A lot of people have gone on to be industry leaders here in Nashville, a lot of really successful agents. And I'm very grateful for all the people who've worked at Living TN through the years. And the best part about being an entrepreneur is the impact that, people make on you when they come and go through your life and those different chapters. So we've had a lot of fun, and, we've started multiple other companies. Some have failed, and some have been really successful, but it's all about the journey. And so I'm a big believer in failing forward, and really you're only a failure when you quit. So I'm determined to, use this podcast as just to kind of give our brand a personality, but also hopefully to inspire other people to start businesses. And I think through the years that God's helped us succeed because we provided jobs. And so I'm very passionate about kind of opening doors for people and then helping them, with their mindset that they can accomplish whatever they want. And I'm just really there as their friend and their, encourager to move along. So
yeah,
that's me in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah, joining the team definitely had an impact on my life and changed it in a lot of different ways. And I guess on that note, I'll share a little bit about my my background. So very different from yours. I was born in Detroit, Michigan.
Motor City.
Yeah, represent. No, I love Michigan, but moved to Colorado before I could remember. I was probably less than 2 years old when my family moved to Colorado. Lived in Loveland. Lived in Denver, Boulder, all over the place. My parents got divorced when I was young, about 5 years old. Won't dive too deep into this, but I think it's worth sharing just to kind of show, I guess, where I came from. So, lived in a single, lived with a single mom, had two brothers. My mom was a severe alcoholic, was in and out of rehab, caused me and my brothers to, at a point, live with a foster family. We lived with other family members, so we were constantly moving, in and out of different schools, that kind of thing. So it was a really kind of unstable, childhood, just constantly moving around, and kind of grew up with the programming more so like, what are we eating for dinner today, instead of what are we going to do, 5 years from now? What are our long-term goals? That wasn't really, something that was programmed into me. So anyways, fast forward, I ended up moving back to Michigan, where a lot of my family is. I went to a community college there for audio engineering. It was kind of a spur-of-the-moment thing. I was initially going to go for architecture, but thought, you know what, music, that's where the money is. So got into that, and realized afterwards that I probably could have gone down a better route getting into music, because I was basically learning from someone that I found out was, I guess, a teacher for a reason, as opposed, because he never really made it as an audio engineer, so kind of learned failed ways and had to unlearn them and relearn them in
Probably
a different
some
way.
good lessons in that.
Yeah. So after that, moved back to Colorado, partnered with the guy, started a studio, was there for 5 years, and it really didn't work out. I wasn't a fan of how he was running the business and felt like he was taking advantage of people. So wanted to part ways, and in that, my wife and I were looking for a new place to live. So we were thinking somewhere like, LA or New York or Atlanta, another place that, music is prevalent in. And at the time, my wife was working for as a receptionist at a medical office, and they had a Christmas party. And at that Christmas party, we had a few drinks, feeling good.
Nice.
Had the Christmas spirit. But one of her colleagues, we were telling him that we were thinking about relocating somewhere, and he was like, well, what about Nashville? And it's like, what about it? Had no idea, never even thought about Nashville as an option. And he talked it up so much and just made it out to be this just incredible place. So it's like, we have to check it out. So we booked a trip out here. It's a long weekend, and we rented a hotel by Opryland and rented a car, went everywhere, did all the touristy stuff, went on Broadway, and like pretty quickly fell in love with it, more so because of the people, how open people were, how friendly people were. It was funny. I went to a gas station, and there was this lady behind the counter, and she's just like, hey, how you doing today, sugar? And I was just like, why is she, like, I thought she was being sarcastic, like being that nice. And it took a while for me to realize like people were actually nice here,
Had you ever been called darling before?
Darling, sugar, none of that.
Right.
Yeah. So
Very, very Tennessee.
yeah. so a bunch of things, made us decide that this was the next place for us. So we booked a date. We didn't have anything lined up. It was very irresponsible. Didn't have jobs lined up, didn't have a place to live. We're like, we're moving on this date because we knew if we waited until everything was lined up perfectly that we just never would make that jump. So we did it, and it's honestly been the best decision that we've made as a couple moving here. Since then, my in-laws have moved to town, and
Nice.
and everyone loves it here. So moved here. I was kind of a freelance audio engineer working on stuff here and there. Got to work with some really cool people. I have always thought about getting into real estate, but I really did not know what it entailed at all. I just thought like, oh yeah, getting into real estate, that'd be fun. Had as a kid, a mentor, my best friend, Peter, who lives out in San Diego, his mom, Nahid, she kind of guided me down that. She's always been in real estate. She's been in like finance and that sort of thing. So that was always behind, just a thought, like I wanted to eventually get into real estate in some capacity, but I thought that it was going to be like, on the side thing, I'll get a closing here or there, and quickly realized that it's not that easy, and it takes a lot more effort to actually get business in real estate. So started out on my own, and I think I was a solo agent for about a year and a half, and then realized that I did not know at all what I was doing. I needed some direction. I needed, guidance. I needed a mentor here in town, and I started asking around. At the time, we were both at Keller Williams, and someone mentioned your name, so we sat down. Got to hear about you and your the Living TN business and everything, and I was really excited to jump in with that. Given my last business experience, I was kind of hesitant to get in business with anyone else, but I've been on the team now for, I believe it's 5.5 years.
Goodness gracious.
6. Yeah.
That's dating us.
Yeah. But it's been another great decision. That I have to give my wife credit, because she pushed me towards she's like, you need to join a real estate team. I'm like, fine. But I'm glad that I did. And I've learned not only a lot about real estate, but also about life in general. Like I pushing for some brownie points here, but I learned a lot from you, and more than I could even verbalize. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm also grateful to be on such an awesome team with so many other awesome agents, and like the both of us, we have a very different background, but this awesome company's brought us together, and just like all the other agents on the team, everyone has their own unique background, and it's just cool being in a nice melting pot of so many different types of people and backgrounds and ethnicity and all that. So, yeah, I guess that brings us to where we're at today. I don't know.
Well, kudos to you.
Too long-winded, but
no, man, I think it's great, and I think others will be inspired to know that it doesn't matter. Sometimes, the challenges that you face as a kid and growing up and having to move a lot, that probably subconsciously affected, the fact that you weren't scared to move to Tennessee because you had moved around before and you had started over. Mm-hmm. And then I think that probably had a role in you wanting to get into real estate as well, and serve other people who wanted to move to the area, and how important it was to have a home. A house is different from a home. And I think the coolest part about being an agent is the people that you get to serve and the people that you meet. And when you do a good job, it really impacts people. And so I think that probably all plays into what you do. And the other part I love about your story is that I think you can come from different backgrounds, from a skill, kind of from a skill side of it, and still make it in real estate. And you've put in the work, and it's just been fun to watch you grow to become a top performer. So, I think just kind of trying to wrap up this conversation is...
Well, if I can interject, because I do want to share one more thing, which I forgot to mention, which was like a really big moment for me this year. So when I was a kid, we didn't have, like, we were living off welfare and didn't have anything. So like we were a recipient of like the local police department coming together, getting presents by people who were generous enough to donate, and we were on the receiving end of that. And this year, the last few years, we've done the Stuff the Truck event here, where we bring a ton of toys and encourage people to bring toys for less fortunate families. And this year, I got to deliver gifts to one of those families, and it was a pretty emotional thing for me, because like, again, coming from that and then being on the other side of it, it was a big deal. And I hope it's encouraging for anyone that, isn't necessarily in the greatest position right now. A lot can change in a very short period of time. So, yeah, sorry, just wanted to share that real quick.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. And I think it's important to know that no matter where you are in your life, you can still pivot at any point and you can still get what you want. And sometimes the path of success is a windy journey, windy road.
Yeah.
And, you take different insights at different stages of your journey. And now you're a leader and encouraging other people to give back and have a family and really have accomplished most of the things you probably set out to do years ago. And here we are now sharing our story on a podcast, and like, who the heck is going to listen to us? We'll see.
You said your mom's going.
My
to,
mom's
right?
listened.
Yeah.
My mom's going to listen to this at least 4 times. So hopefully
Gotta get those views up.
YouTube will recognize her enthusiasm. And so my goal, I'd love to hear your goal, but my goal for this podcast is maybe inspiring another person to start a business, inspiring another person to move from across the country to Middle Tennessee. I also really want to promote other local business owners and hear their story and just really give a feel on what does it look and feel like to be a Tennessean. And it's an I'm a little biased, but I feel like it's an amazing life and it's an amazing place to live. And we've got, just a lot of cool guests lined up to share. And, hopefully you'll get a little nugget here or there about entrepreneurship or sales or real estate in particular. Or, the other thing I just want to make sure we mention is that we truly believe that buying real estate is the fastest way to create wealth and change your family tree. So we'll dive a lot into investing and how to let real estate really change the trajectory of your life. So I'm very, very excited about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess my goal is, I want people to have trust in, real estate agents. And I hope that some of the advice that we give people will resonate with them, and so that we can build trust with those people and become a long-term resource for people for really anything involving real estate. Because, there's a lot of things that people aren't totally aware of that they can do with their investment in real estate. And like you said, it changes people's lives. It changes their family tree once they become, homeowners. You're putting money in your own pocket as opposed to someone else's, and you're also, relaying that knowledge to everyone in your family and that sort of thing. Like, it really can make a big difference. So yeah, just again, want to be a trusted resource in the area for anything real estate related, and just excited to expand on that and get all the other agents here on the team on this podcast and share their stories and their knowledge and expertise. So
we'll do some quick hits. Every podcast, we're going to have some nuggets about entrepreneurship, some nuggets about how to win in today's market. We'll talk about different types of business ventures. So hopefully this will be somewhat of an educational thing. And then it'll also just be, hey, that's a cool person. I want to reach out to them. And that what they said inspired me. And shout out to our encouragers here and our producers, Ashley Kisner, Zach Markle. We wouldn't be on camera without them. Thank you, Ryan, for encouraging me to do this. It's definitely been a rabbit hole of a project, and I'm glad we're kind of getting the first one off. Hopefully my hair looked good, and I've been losing weight, getting ready for this. Still got a little bit to go, but I guess we'll see you next time.
Yeah,
and appreciate everybody for listening.
Yep.
Woohoo! Let's go.